So this is another example of persuasion. I was about to say persuasion. Persuasion gone wrong and gone very, very wrong. And in this case, I'm going to take a red burning hot topic, namely, brace yourself, climate change. Yes, climate change, global warming. The world's getting hotter. Every single year, you're hearing the same news. It's never been a hotter year. The temperatures are soaring. People are getting their livelihoods wrecked. Temperatures are increasing. They're increasing at a rapid pace. There are irreversible climate changes happening. The world's never been hotter. We're going towards the human species is going extinct, etc., etc., etc. Well, as it so happens, just right now, I read that in North America, I believe it's predominantly in Ontario in Canada, but also across the US, there are severe winter storms expected for the coming days and with very, very low temperatures. I think actually, if I'm not mistaken, that the epicenter of the cold development in Ontario in Canada and other places in Canada as well, and across the northern hemisphere, but predominantly in Canada, would be so cold as down to minus 50 degrees centigrade, which is tremendously cold. Minus 50 degrees centigrade. It's insane, right? So people are told to prepare for the worst. There might be power outages, there might be problems with transport, etc., etc. Buckle up, right? So people are stocking up on food, other essentials, and pretty much bracing themselves for what's about to be a period of very low temperatures. Last year, I think it's never been as cold as it was during the months of November. Excuse me, it wasn't last year, it was the year before that. November to December of 2024 I think, were the coldest recorded temperatures in my country for the past 20 years. And yet we're constantly told that the world is getting hotter and hotter. I mean, some things doesn't make any sense. It does not really make any sense, right? This is persuasion gone wrong. And this is what happens when you keep lying, when you keep omitting the truth, and when you keep twisting the truth as well. Listen, it might get warmer and warmer in some places, but then it also gets colder and colder in other places. And also, could it not be that the weather is getting more extreme? It's not as homogeneous as it used to be. When there is winter, it gets colder than what it used to be. When there's summer, it gets hotter than what it used to be. So the statement that the world is getting hotter is true. But then by extension, the statement that the world is getting colder is also true. So it doesn't go both ways. Or excuse me, it does go both ways. We're not going towards a world where we're getting boiled to death. No, we're going towards a world or a state where when it's warm, it's really fucking warm. And when it's cold, it's really fucking cold. That's it. The weather is getting more extreme, not necessarily hotter. So if you're reporting on how the world is getting hotter all the time, then you have to report on how the world is getting colder all the time. Because just wait 6 months and they're going to scream all about hot temperatures. Oh, temperatures are boiling. People are dying of heat strokes. People have no place to hide for the heat, etc., etc. Rising sea levels. And then now here we are in January and people are complaining that it's so cold. I mean, what are you to believe? So if you're one of these climate protagonists and you're one of these climate fanatics that desperately want the world to believe that we need to do something about climate change, well, then you need to acknowledge the actual situation. It doesn't necessarily get hotter all the time. Go talk about climate change and rising sea levels and how rising temperatures make life unbearable for people when they're freezing to death. You can't. Literally. This is one of the most hilarious headlines I ever read. It was a couple of winters ago. It was during a heavy snowfall season. I think we had a good week or so of heavy snowfall in my country. There were, large problems with transport. Airplanes couldn't land properly on the airstrips because the runway hadn't been, the snow hadn't been removed from the runways. Like I said, transport was up in the air, no pun intended. Buses couldn't reach their destinations. Truckers couldn't reach their destinations either. I think actually the trains had problems because it was so cold that I don't know what it was. Something about the electricity didn't work when it was so cold. I forget what it was. But essentially the cold gave the trains a problem. And the state-owned media in my country did this interview with this climate protagonist, Hag, because that's what she really was. She was more concerned with how these snow-rich winters would make people more skeptical towards climate change, which is so ironic, and it's so moronic, and it's so dumb. It's really dumb. When there's heavy snowfall outside, when there's temperatures so low that the trains can't even work, and when buses can't reach their destination because there's so much snow outside, people don't give a shit about high temperatures, the sun movement. What on earth are you talking about, lady? You're just being dumb. Or you're lying. Or maybe you're both. But I'm telling you one thing. You're not persuading those who are climate skeptics or climate change skeptics that the world is getting hotter. When you're pointing at the snow and you're calling it a problem. Oh, it's a problem for us because there's snowing outside, so we can't tell people that the world is getting hotter. It's so dumb. So, I gotta cool down a little bit. But essentially, this is persuasion logic 101. If you're going to persuade people about something, at the very least, you need to have your facts straight. And you need to persuade people when there's an instance for doing so. Now, these days, everything is being recorded. So I can go back to 2022 and 2023, and I can check the temperatures of the actual, or during the actual months during winter. And I can see that there were snowfalls, there were low temperatures, and it certainly wasn't hot. By no account, it was hot outside. So, what are we to believe? Now, there's another thing, and that is namely that the word climate change in and of itself is very, very vague. It's very, very arbitrary. There's always going to be climate change. Do you know even what the climate is? Do you know what the climate is? The climate is the average weather through a given period of time. If I measure the temperature for 1 week and how it changes, then by definition, that's the local climate. So it's always going to change. And because there is something called the Milankovitch cycle, which is an expression for how much the Earth wobbles back and forth, in other words, indicating how much sunlight it's being exposed for, then this is going to take these wobbles don't happen in a day, obviously. They take millions of years. But that will also affect the average temperature and therefore also the climate. There have been more than one ice age. Well, an ice age is a massive climate change, right? What happened in order for the ice to melt? The temperature had to rise, which is a massive climate change. Nobody even talks about that. Notice how these climate protagonists, they don't even talk about the ice age. They don't mention the ice ages and the cycles in between the ice ages because it doesn't rhyme with it doesn't fit the narrative of what they're conveying. It doesn't fit their messaging. So these are all examples of people trying to persuade you to do something, yet they can't even get their facts straight, and they conveniently omit truths that would otherwise suggest a different, more nuanced take. At the very least, do that before you're attempting any sort of persuasion, because nothing is black or white in this regard. So that's I guess, today's persuasion lesson. Persuasion lesson. If you want to learn more about persuasion, then get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you are watching and or listening to this. And I'll talk to you there. Thank you and bye-bye.